We got some answers on the fake news about Trump and wiretapping this week. The Trump administration soured the relationship with one of our closest allies again when Sean Spicer made this statement about the top spy agency in the UK.
On Fox News on March 14th, Judge Andrew Napolitano made the following statement, quote, 3 intelligence sources have informed Fox News that President Obama went outside the chain of command. He didn't use the NSA, he didn't use the CIA, he didn't use the FBI, and he didn't use the Department of Justice. He used GCHQ. What is that? It's the initials for the British intelligence spying agency.
The GCHQ fired back at the White House, calling Napolitano's claims nonsense and ridiculous. And now we know the name of at least one of the people behind that ridiculous accusation. According to the New York Times, one of the sources was this guy, Larry C. Johnson, a former intelligence officer who shares Napolitano's penchant for conspiracy theories, including one for which Johnson is perhaps best known, the hoax about the existence of a supposed tape recording of Michelle Obama making disparaging remarks about white people. And joining me now are Washington Post columnist Jonathan Capehart, former State Department spokesperson Nayyera Haq, Malcolm Nance, MSNBC contributor and author of The Plot to Hack America, and Naveed Jamali, MSNBC contributor and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. Thank you all for being here. I want to talk a little bit about Larry Johnson, if I could, just for a moment, because one of the more disturbing things that we learned this week is that the White House is willing to quote not Fox News's reporters, but a commentator, Judge Napolitano from the show, who apparently was also in turn quoting a conspiracy theorist named Larry C. Johnson. Let's listen to Larry C. Johnson on RT, which is Russian state television, talking about supposed GHCQ collusion.
That there was some collusion overseas with Britain's own GHCQ. That information that was gathered from GHCQ was actually passed to John Brennan, and it was disseminated within the U.S. government.
Malcolm Nance, how does it strike you that apparently the Trump administration is getting its intelligence not from its intelligence services, but from Larry C. Johnson, conspiracy theorist?
Yeah, and Judge Napolitano, who Donald Trump kept praising in his commentary. Very interesting thing about Judge Napolitano. This is twice he's been on the edge of a conspiracy theory that has cut to this Russian hacking. And the little known one was last year in April. He put out on Fox News that that the Russians were having a debate at the Vladimir Putin level on releasing the 30,000 hacked Hillary Clinton emails, which he alleged were hacked. None of this would have happened. It would have been the highest level of intelligence collection in the United States. And then in July, Donald Trump repeated that same claim. Judge Napolitano got that information from Russia Today. He has a tendency to spin off all of these little Russian claims, call them his own, working alongside, obviously, with Larry Johnson's ridiculousness, and then turning that into these major controversies, with Donald Trump praising him every step of the way. It's ludicrous.
And Naveed Jamali, is there any chance at all that the President of the United States, that Barack Obama, could have rung up GCHQ and asked them to wiretap Trump Tower?
No, there's no other way to put it. I mean, look, this is just not. It is so unbelievable that to have this discussion. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we had a president that instilled confidence in our country. You know, we were attacked by the Russians during the 2016 elections. You know, whether you believe that they did so to help Donald Trump or not, they still attacked us. And this is the time when we need leadership. We have a president, but we don't have a leader, and this just goes to reinforce these crazy theories that are just unfounded. At this point, either Donald Trump is knowingly lying about this stuff, or he's just so incompetent that I don't know that he should be president. I have to agree with Maxine Waters. We're headed into a path that is going to end with a congressional sort of inquiry and probably some constitutional crisis, because these claims are frankly outrageous.
And Nayyera Haq, it means that he is spending a lot of time watching television, watching Fox News, and that is where he's getting his intelligence from, and that he apparently is not leaning on the intelligence services who report to him.
And this is part of the challenge of having a president who, frankly, doesn't really like to read. A big chunk of how people get information when they are in government service is from reports and analysis that are combed through with a fine-tooth comb by your analysts and your agencies. So is he relying on in-person briefings, which could be helpful? No, it seems like he's relying on really unsourced television journalism. And I hate to say this, especially in light of the Trump White House's attack on the media. But this is exactly the type of unsourced journalism that is problematic, and we're not holding a high standard to who your sources are. A conspiracy theorist is not an intel source. An intel source is somebody who is actually inside government, who has access to information and is sharing it under some confidential circumstances to help bring transparency to government. This is a type of journalist, this sourcing that Fox News is using is to further a partisan agenda, and it's not helping anybody in America in clarifying exactly what is going on.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that it is journalism. I mean, Judge Napolitano isn't even a journalist at Fox. He's a commentator. Jonathan, I want to let you listen to Congressman Adam Schiff, who was just on Meet the Press earlier, and he spoke about what Comey may or may not be able to actually tell the committee in that testimony tomorrow.
On the issue of collusion, he'll probably be the most limited in what he can share, but there's a lot he can tell us about the Russian motivations for their intervention in our election, how the Russians operate in Europe, what techniques they use, what we should be on the lookout for in our investigation. In Europe and other places, we've seen them use blackmail, use compromise, use the natives of those foreign countries that they're intervening in, how they use paid social media trolls.
Is that good enough, Jonathan Capehart, having been so specific, 11 days out from the presidential election and then 3 days out? Is Jim Comey now in a position where he really ought to tell the American people more than just sort of background information about how the Russians operate in Europe?
Well, politically, yes, but we have to keep in mind what Congressman Schiff was saying. Director Comey is going to be testifying in an open forum, and it's going to be as important to listen to what he says as what he doesn't say, because there are probably going to be questions asked of him that if he were in closed session with no television cameras around, with folks with security clearances, that he would be able to answer forthrightly. So when I'm watching the hearing tomorrow, I'm going to be paying very close attention to what he doesn't say. Look, I understand what you're saying about what Director Comey did a few days out before the election with the letter about Hillary Clinton and the investigations and the emails. But, you know, this situation here with Russian interference into our electoral process is extremely serious, and they're being very, very careful. I mean, we know about the stories about how delicate the situation was and what President Obama, you know, wanted to do, didn't want to do leading up because of the sensitivities. So be very mindful of what Comey says and doesn't say in that hearing tomorrow. And the other thing I want to point out, Joy, what we have here with President Trump and his relying on conspiracy theorists and putting Chancellor Merkel on the spot by talking about, hey, we're in the same situation, being bugged by President Obama. What the world is watching is one of the stalwarts of global stability and security crumbling before our very eyes.
Yeah, the credibility of the White House. And yet, I'll just note for our audience that on the Senate side, senators have asked one Roger J. Stone to preserve all documents related to Russia. So the plot thickens. It'll be the House tomorrow, but the Senate is still cooking as well. Jonathan Capehart will be back later in the show. Nayyera Haq, Malcolm Nance, and Naveed Jamali, thank you all. And